Hey there! I'm so excited that you are interested in the Safe and Sound protocol or the Rest and Restore protocol. My name is Melissa, and I know that your time is precious and you're probably really busy. And so I wanted to give you just a quick video to watch. You can watch it on your own time. You can get the lay of the land, some of the basic information, the questions that most people ask. And then if you have additional questions, feel free to grab a time on my calendar where we can chat a little bit more so that you have all the information that you need to know to decide if this is a good fit for you. If at the end of this video, you're like, oh my gosh, I know I need this, then there is also a button below here that will allow you to get started right away. So first, I want to do some really basic neuroscience so that I can explain a little bit about how a listening intervention works. Okay, so here is a very rudimentary picture of a brain superimposed over a house because I like to use the upstairs downstairs brain analogy. So just really quickly, the basement of the brain is the most primitive part of the brain. It's in charge of automatic processes such as breathing, body temperature, digestion, heartbeat, neuroception, which we'll talk a little bit more about, all the things you're not really thinking about. Then in the middle, the first floor, this is like the cerebellum, the limbic system. This is in charge of things like balance and posture, some language, memory, recall, and it's also our emotional center. And then the upstairs brain, the prefrontal cortex, is responsible for things like logic, language, good judgment, good planning, good executive function. And unfortunately, this part of the brain, research shows, doesn't fully develop in neurotypical humans until probably early to mid 20s. And if you or someone in your family is neurodivergent, their prefrontal cortex may not catch up even until the 30s. So it's important to remember, kind of how our nervous system is doing the best it can based on its development. Okay, so if you have taken in any of my social media content, if you've listened to maybe a podcast I've been on, I will often talk about body work or top down versus bottom up modalities for managing chronic stress, anxiety, blocked care, chronic dysregulation. So I wanted to just explain a little bit about what that is. Okay. Top-down strategies are things that rely on words and language, thinking, logic, that kind of trying harder mentality. Bottom-up strategies are sensory rich. They meet basic needs. They're very movement rich, and they rely on co-regulation. So top-down modalities may be things like talk therapy, things like CBT, trying harder, like I already mentioned. Bottom-up therapies and modalities don't require language or cognition. And then there's some that kind of fall in between on that spectrum. Those things would be things like EMDR, right? Where there's some cognition, but there's also a body modality. So when I think about bottom-up strategies, Safe and Sound and Rest and Restore both fall into those because they require no cognition, but they do require co-regulation. So one of the analogies I like to make or word pictures is think about soothing a baby. If it's not something that you would use to soothe a baby, it's probably not a bottom-up strategy, right? When we soothe babies, we use a lot of sensory things. We swaddle them, we keep them warm, we hold them close, we meet their basic needs. We make sure that they are well fed, that they are warm enough, cool enough, right? We're even using external ways to modulate their body temperature. We do a lot of movement, right? We rock them and we sway them and we swing them. And we also offer our co-regulation, right? We are bringing usually, hopefully, when we are soothing a baby, our co-regulated selves. We're not yelling and screaming at them, can't they just figure it out? Again, we're not also using logic. We're not saying, you know, I can't believe you're crying. There's nothing to cry about, right? And even when we are using language, we are relying more on our tone, right? We might say, like, there's nothing wrong. You're going to be okay. But we're not expecting them to really understand that language. We're relying on our tone and their other nonverbal sensory systems, their neuroception to pick up, I'm a safe person. I'm telling you it's okay. Here's some of my regulation. You're going to be okay. Here's a fun fact. It only takes 200 milliseconds for our brain to process nonverbal communication for an appraisal of safety or threat. So your brain has this thing called neuroception that is constantly scanning the environment, both inside your body, the external environment, and other nervous systems it can sense to say, am I safe or not safe? And there's a confirmation bias to that, which we'll talk about in a little bit more. But it's important to know that the way that the brain is deciding to be regulated or not regulated largely has to do with subconscious input and sensory rich input, not the language we're telling it. We cannot convince nervous systems with logic to snap out of it, be less anxious, be more regulated. This is the Pyramid of Need by Dan Hughes and Kim Golding. And kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sorry, you need each of the bottom layers to reach the top layers. So in this example, you cannot develop relationships if you don't have felt safety. This isn't that cognition of you're safe, it's your body feeling safe. Without safe relationships, you can't receive comfort and co-regulation. If you don't have that ability to receive comfort and co-regulation, you're going to have trouble showing empathy and reflection and understanding how your behavior impacts other people. Without that empathy and reflection, you are going to struggle with self-esteem and identity issues, resilience in the nervous system. And without that self-esteem and identity, you cannot really go to that upstairs brain where logic lives to use language to explore your trauma and mourn your losses. So this is why I'm so passionate about a modality like listening, because so many of us are not regulated enough or are missing some of these layers in the pyramid, and we're trying talk therapy and it's not quite landing. We're not getting the traction that we were hoping we would. Okay, so listening modalities, safe and sound in particular, and rest and restore are based on polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory is the science of feeling safe. It was developed by world-renowned researcher and clinician Dr. Stephen Porges, founder of Integrated Listening Systems, which is also now Unite with a Y, and he was the author of polyvagal theory. So there are three organizing principles of polyvagal theory. Hierarchy, which just talks about our nervous system's priority for feeling safe. That's where we want to come back to. It's like our home. Our ability to do that has to do with a lot of different things, but that's what it would like to do. It also talks about kind of the defense mechanisms we'll look for first. Our nervous system will often go to some kind of activation in stress, looking for a way to fight the enemy or run away from it. The last resort tool is to collapse and kind of play dead. Neuroception, we talked a little bit about, is our nervous system's subconscious sense of deciding whether we're safe or not safe. And co-regulation just speaks to the importance of community and our nervous system to be with other safe nervous systems. All self-regulation is really internalized co-regulation. So we really cannot learn a sense of felt safety in our nervous systems without the presence of another regulated person in our space in our life. I want to talk a little bit about confirmation bias as well. So I want you to think about something that you know is true. Let's go with the sky is blue. And imagine how many mornings you would have to wake up to a non-blue sky to change your mind. The first morning, you might wake up and maybe the sky is white. And you think, it's just cloudy, but the sky is still blue above the clouds. How many days would you have to wake up to a white sky for you to start thinking, I wonder if the sky is still blue? You might be thinking, never. I'm just always going to think it's cloudy, right? You might think maybe in 5 years, I would start thinking, maybe it's different. Maybe you're just thinking now it's permanently cloudy. But just we have such deeply ingrained beliefs in our nervous system. And then think about if maybe the sky was green and you were like, oh, there's something like environmental happening, maybe some kind of toxic fumes in the air. Maybe you came out on day 100 and you could see a little sliver of blue in the sky. All of a sudden you'd be like, I knew the sky was blue. And then you could go another 100 days of green sky, right? But that little sliver of blue affirmed your confirmation bias, right? And so it's the same thing with nervous systems. Nervous systems have a confirmation bias of either protection or connection. I either need to protect myself because the world feels dangerous, or I'm open. I can be vulnerable and curious and social with the world. If you believe that you need to be in protection mode, that the world is unpredictable, you could give your body lots of signs that you're safe now. The danger's gone. But because that confirmation bias is looking for evidence that you're still in danger, it's going to see those cues of safety and say, I don't really believe those. That's just an oddity, right? The sky's still blue. The world's still dangerous. And the thing is we all get messages every once in a while that we're in a little bit of danger, right? Something stressful happens, even something scary like a loud clap of thunder startles us, right? And then your nervous system, if it's already in protection mode, is going to say, see, I knew. It's like that sliver of blue sky. See, I knew the world was dangerous. So it can be really, really tricky to move our confirmation bias from protection to connection, which is why some of the things that you might be trying to de-stress, eating better, sleeping better, hydrating more, paring down your calendar, are all really good things. But if you're fighting against this confirmation bias of protection, they might not be enough. So that's where a listening protocol, especially something like the Safe and Sound protocol, can actually help your nervous system switch that bias by hyper exposing it to sounds of safety. Let's talk a little bit more about the difference between Safe and Sound and Rest and Restore. Safe and Sound is hyper exposing your nervous system to sounds of safety so that your confirmation bias can switch. So it is going to improve things like social engagement. It helps with sensory and emotional challenges. It improves your nervous system's ability to be open and connected, connection to others. It stimulates the social engagement system through very specialized, very specially filtered music. Think of it as like an exercise for your brain and body. It is actually exercising some of your internal ear muscles and changing the way that your body hears sounds. When your when your nervous system is in protection mode, sound is one of the main things that it's using to decide if you're safe or not safe. If we think about this, you know this, right? You know that music changes the way we perceive things, right? If you think about Hollywood, the way that they use music to build a sense of suspense versus tell you it's a happy ending, right? So we intuitively already know these things. So the Safe and Sound protocol is toning. It's a vagal nerve exercise for your sympathetic nervous system. That's kind of like the part of your nervous system that's in charge of fight or flight. The Rest and Restore protocol supports restoration, homeostasis, and sub-diaphragmatic functions, and it helps with things like stress, fatigue, sleep, and gut issues. It really helps us improve our connection to self if you're familiar with the word interoception, right? So this is great for people who are struggling to have regulated internal processes. So if you have children, it might be bathrooming issues, feeding issues, for all people, sleep issues. It uses entrainment. So rather than a certain frequency of sound, it is using rhythm and resonance to help bring a body's rhythms into regulation. And you can think of it kind of like as a stealth meditation. So two completely different listening protocols. Rest and Restore is toning the parasympathetic part of your nervous system, like the brake, and Safe and Sound is tuning kind of like that accelerator. So here are some of the practical things that you need to know. Each protocol, the Safe and Sound and the Rest and Restore, are 5 hours of active listening. They happen in sessions that are never longer than 30 minutes in a day, but could be as short as a minute. So it could take as short as 2 weeks to finish a protocol if you listen to 30 minutes every day for 10 days, or it could take months depending on what your nervous system and your schedule capacity is. I would say average for one of the protocols takes about 2 months for my average client. If you are thinking about either protocol for your child, parents are required to do a protocol first before facilitating with their kids. Listening sessions should be completed a minimum of twice a week. Think of this as like going to the gym, a neural workout. So in order to have it be the most effective, you want to be consistent. Over-the-ear headphones, like the ones pictured, are required for SSP. Rest and Restore, RRP, can be listened to using earbuds or over-the-ear headphones. And listening may be completed while sitting still and being quiet or doing a quiet activity. And if you decide to work with me to do Safe and Sound or Rest and Restore, that's something we'll talk about, what's a good activity for you and your family. If you decide to work with me, here is what the fee includes. For current fees, feel free to shoot me a text or schedule a time on my calendar. Fees include all pre and post assessments. We'll do assessments before you start the protocol and about 4 weeks after. Benefits tend to peak about 2 to 4 weeks after your protocol is finished. Pricing includes both Safe and Sound and or Rest and Restore. I will take clues from your nervous system and we'll work together to decide which of the protocols is the best fit for you. The fee does include a group onboarding session. I do one group onboarding session a month. If you can't make any of those times or would like to schedule one at a more convenient time for you, there are private onboarding sessions available for an additional fee. Every person who does the protocol is going to get an individualized protocol and protocol pacing, and everyone also can receive unlimited coaching and support via Marco Polo. And that's a video messaging app if you're not familiar with that. And then lastly, here are just a couple remaining questions folks often have. So is a listening intervention safe for all ages? The answer is yes. There are accommodations we can make based on age and ability and tolerance of headphones and all of those things. So there's always an ideal way to deliver a protocol, and there's always accommodations we can make to kind of help inch the nervous system towards where we want it to be. Can SSP and RRP be used with other therapies? It depends. So if that's a question that you have, go ahead and grab a time on my calendar so we can talk about what you're doing, what you're already doing, what you're thinking about doing, and whether or not that's compatible with a listening intervention. I know this is like the $1,000,000 question, will it work for us? The answer is I have never seen in a case where the family is doing other nervous system work, because this isn't a magic fix, right? It works in conjunction with nervous system aware parenting, nervous system awareness for you as an individual if you're thinking about it for yourself. So if you follow the instructions and you're doing other nervous system work, I always see changes in the nervous system between the pre and post assessments. Now, you may need to do multiple protocols or both SSP and RRP, or multiple rounds of one or the other, to kind of really get to where you want to be. Think of it as like peeling layers of an onion back. Sometimes people do one trip through the protocol and they're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing, I'm good to go. Other times we see a shift, but we're like, there's still more that we could see. And so we'll do it again and again and again. Sometimes people have a really great experience first time through, but there's some transition or shift or stressor that happens in their life, and they come back months or years later and say, I think I need a little tune-up. So it is not unusual for folks to repeat the protocol, and I try to make that as accessible financially and all the things as possible, because I want people to keep up with it and to be able to do it as many times as necessary to get you feeling like your most open and connected self. And then what does the fee include? We already went over that. So again, I hope this was helpful. If you have additional questions, you can grab a time on my calendar, or shoot me a quick text, and often I can answer questions that way. I'm excited to meet you and possibly work with you.